Hi everyone and welcome to your weekly energy update, a general tarot guidance taking a look at how this week's energies are likely to play out in our lives both individually and collectively. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, the astrology of this week speaks about a lot of tension, a lot of very hard to face feelings, emotions, energies. There are going to be a lot of triggers. There are going to be some shocking news, shocking events, Uranus. And at the same time, there is also going to be a certain inspiration, hope, and very powerful manifestation of faith out there. So it's not just doom and gloom. And usually the tarot reading kind of confirms the astrology. But this time, it's not that it doesn't confirm it. It is just that it touches certain subjects which I'm very uncomfortable with. And there is no way I can really elude speaking about certain things because that's what the cards say, so I will have no choice but to speak them. But again, I must say that this is not my comfort zone at all. I really don't want to focus or feed, let's say, this version of reality, if that makes sense. But since this is the message of the cards, what else can I do but to try my best to interpret them in the most, let's say, balanced manner. So, let us begin. First, we have the High Priest clarified by the Nine of Swords and the Eight of Swords. And in this specific tarot deck, the High Priest is actually called Faith. So it's a little bit even more suggestive than basically the High Priest itself. And naturally, first we start with the collective expression of this energy. And well, what the cards mean in this combination together is that a very, very strong, manipulative, psychological influence out there. The Eight of Swords, that is all the media channel, that is all the communication channels, social networks, social media, mainstream media, newspapers, is going to be filled like to the maximum capacity, like overflowing with random, chaotic, but highly manipulative information. Now, a very, let's say, dramatic way to depict what these cards mean is it's almost like fear, the Nine of Swords, right? Collective fear, collective even psychosis is very, very much alive. It is so very strong. It is so very influential. It is so very contagious, if that makes sense, that it almost acts like something that is almost alive, and it just travels freely as it wills on the internet, in the every single communication information channel, both official, unofficial, even the dark web, even alternative sources of information and communication. And all of this is extremely challenging for people to keep their psychological stability, to keep a clear mind, a clear mindset, to live in their own frequency, if that makes sense, whatever that frequency might be. This is almost like fear is invading the world collectively, like water passing through the cracks and small holes of wall, let's say. So it's really intense, it is really heavy. On one hand, of course, that it is very in tune with the Scorpio season, Mars in Scorpio, Sun and Mercury in Scorpio. But the sheer intensity of this is actually quite frightening to me, at least personally. But if this is like a result of just the fear that us as a species accumulated over these years, and that just reaching all-time high, a maximum moment, or if this is something purposely orchestrated, like a psychological warfare, if this makes sense. That is not very clear. Maybe it's both, or maybe it is overdoing it. But what these cards actually try to suggest is that the sheer quantity, if this makes sense, of the fear energy is so very strong that it's gonna, one way or another, manifest out there in the world, so it takes shapes and forms. And whenever that happens, that is basically bad news for everyone. Now, how this can manifest is not very clear. It is basically asking yourself the question, what's the biggest fear of the community, let's say, that you live in right now? And you might see a manifestation of your fears, but if we basically take this onto a much more elevated level, as in, what's the biggest fear of humanity right now? Well, a part of that is gonna manifest. So with the High Priest, with the Faith card, this can be, for example, the decline of the health of a highly symbolic, highly influential religious leader, for example, a world leader having certain kind of problems, maybe even a world leader stepping down or showing signs of great instability, that it's outside of their control, of their influence. So this might be some not so good pessimistic news, information coming from very relevant people, as in, for example, religious leader, world leader, country leader, president, king, etc. This can also be like a really tragic happening somewhere out in the world, something that is profoundly, let's say, discouraging for a lot of people. Or it can also be like an act of terrorism, because fear and faith together equal a fanatic or really extreme act in the name of a faith religion that kind of scares people, frightens people, terrorizes people. But of course, this can play out in so very many shapes and forms. All that I can tell you for certain is like the blueprint of the energy, like the lattice that will be the skeleton of the manifestation of this energy, which means being basically trapped, blinded, and constricted by fear. And how this can play out, its many versions, is really just due to our imagination. Now next we have the Moon reversed, the Ten of Wands, and again the High Priest. And this basically means very, very heavy emotions. This means like a very strong emotional burden, where all hope of the future, of a pleasant future, of an optimistic future, of a free future, because the Ten of Wands is a card which is the opposite of freedom. And this also means rebellion. This also means trying our hardest to fight against this. So, naturally this will mean protest, uprising, legal battles, people trying to basically protect their sovereignty, protect their rights, protect their individuality in all shapes and forms. And with this Ten of Wands, there is going to be also a lot of resistance and opposition from centralized power, so probably it's the symbol of law enforcement, police, even military, trying to keep the peace, keep the order. So it's definitely not going to be a very pretty sight, but there are totally other possible expressions of this energy. The Moon reversed immediately tells me that we're in eclipse season already, and even though we still need to wait a week and a few days for the upcoming Taurus lunar eclipse, yet such a very powerful astrological event already produces its effects. And every lunar eclipse is like a major reset. It is like a really strong karmic culmination of energy, so something is definitely bound to manifest. So this also has a lot of economic, financial, material implications here. And perhaps this might be the most positive side of this energy, because there are a lot of fears around economy and money. So things are definitely going to get very, very tough, very tight, very, crisis-like in certain parts of the world. Yet still, that is a necessary evil, if that makes sense, because this is how we upgrade our value system. This is actually something quite natural. Certain things do have to lose their value, even collectively speaking, even globally speaking, and other revolutionary, the next, the new, has to gain value, and this is like an ongoing process, and definitely this lunar eclipse is going to be a trigger in this process. Of course, one of many, but it's still going to be very relevant. On the other hand, there is another positive expression of this energy, because this can also be interpreted in the best way possible, where, the moon is reversed. That means emotional crisis. So something that people fear, something that is an urgency, a crisis, a need. So their fears are actually quite justified. And the Ten of Wands can mean a lot of pressure, a lot of hardship. Yet there's that high priest. In some parts of the world, faith, belief, genuine determination to get over the problems, regardless of how strong they are, is gonna work like a charm. So faith will move mountains in certain parts of the world. So this can also mean a lot of spiritual strength coming to our aid, if that makes sense. The fear energy that is spreading around the world and manifesting, that can also be seen as a rather spiritual, psychological energy, which basically, according to the laws of physics, shouldn't be as potent, as strong, as almost alive as it is. But if that exists, that means that its opposite, the counter energy, also has to rise up and do its job. And the counter energy is faith, the power of dreams, deep belief in a positive resolution in the future, etc., etc. So both of these energies, both of these, let's say, powers that source from within us, are gonna gain a lot of ground. Now moving on, this is even more unusual. There's the Strength card in reverse position, clarified by the Strength card in upright position, and the World reversed. Now what this means is that one power, the Strength card, is declining and another one is rising up. But in the heat of this symbolic energy shift, power shift, and also battle, if we can understand it that way, like a symbolic battle of the old and the new, and not even as much light and dark, but rather the old dark and light and the new dark and light battling each other. In many cases, the light and dark are actually on the same side. It's not their opposite polarity that basically makes them be part of one faction or the other, but it's their affiliation to the ideologies that animate them. And yet, even though the new rising up and taking over everything, basically exerting its dominance, is totally unavoidable, yet before things get better, stable, safe, before everyone becomes totally, undoubtedly aware of what the new is, what the new norm, what the new rules, regulations, new legislation, even new constitution, new government, whatever that new is, things will get a tiny bit worse, if that makes sense. The world reverse. So this combination of cards just wants to tell us that we are heavily into the storm and we cannot expect everything to be okay in an instant. All of us have to do our roles, all of us have to fight our own battles, and all of us have to basically, you know how symbolic, the strength reversed and the strength upright. The strength reversed always symbolizes the primitive, the primordial, the animalistic, the brutal strength, the survival strength, while the strength in upright position symbolizes the elevated strength, the gentle one, the caring one, that which basically nurtures and protects with the strength, not conquers. So anyway, long story short, all of us have to choose which side of the strength we embody right now. So we must ask ourselves the question, what is our role here and now? Both, of course, in our own life stories, but like it or not, want it or not, we're also connected to whatever is going on outside. So even if we don't know it, we still have a role to play out there. And chances are that if you're listening to this video, your role is to simply hold the frequency of your dreams. No matter what happens, don't let go. Don't give up. If we don't weave the beauty of our souls, our minds, our emotions into the future, so planting the seeds of intention, as in if none of us adds beauty to it, if none of us adds love and magic and all the little insignificant things that one would not think about in a moment of crisis, let's say, then there's no way that the future that is gonna become very clear to us in a not very long time, then the divine cannot put that there in our places. So if everything related to beauty, to the small to joys of life, to the magic of life, to the mystery of it all, to the great adventure that life is. So if we want all of that to be part of our future, energetically speaking, even karmically speaking, then right now we have to hold the frequency. We have to live in it, be it, embody it, and simply draw it down. You know, we are the lattices, the blueprints, the schematics, the skeletons for it. No one else will do this for us. So basically, if you're born a dreamer, an artist, a spiritualist, whatever Neptunian, now is your time to do exactly what you're good at, to dream it into existence and not let it go, not release it. Not allow anyone else's fear and polluted soul, mind, psyche to basically take your true power away. So it may be pretty hard this week for all of us, emotionally and psychologically, but we still have to do our jobs and fulfill our roles. Not just for us, but for everyone, because otherwise we're really not getting this future. As in, let's say astrologically, the age of Aquarius can mean so many things, and some of them quite doom and gloomy, to be totally honest with you. Aquarius is not notorious for its emotional elevation and purity and heart-centered lifestyle. Aquarius can be cold as absolute zero. So if we don't want to embrace that, we better embody the Leo expression, its opposite sign, and make sure that our thoughts are always charged by pure emotions. And last but not least, we have the Six of Swords clarified by the Three of Coins and the Devil reversed. This is truly an optimistic energy because it just tells us that we are on this journey, we're moving forward. It may seem at times that we're actually moving backwards or not going anywhere or going in circles, but that's not true. We're truly moving forward, we're doing the job, we're working very, very hard, and with the devil reversed. We human beings fought for freedom so very many times in our collective history, but never ever have we fought like this. Our physical fights, our technological fights, our economic fights, our legal, ideological fights, well, they haven't been that very successful. So right now, if we're called to fight with the power of our minds, mind over matter, and also with the strength of our spirits, so these two together, well, we have every single hope to believe that maybe now we can create perhaps just a tiny bit more idealistic and perfect expression of freedom that we have done ever before. Of course, it won't please everyone. Of course, it won't be perfect. It won't be totally ideal. But experimentation, we never tried this, and now fate actually is forcing all of us to use this as our primary tool because we have nothing else available. So let's go with the flow and see what happens. Let's see what the power of our minds, our unlimited minds, and the power of the spirit and the love that we have within us can actually do. And on the other hand, from a very down-to-earth perspective, this might mean that somewhere in the world, somewhere very relevant, maybe the work industry, the human resources and all of that is not going to be subjected to like restrictions, so people can still work freely with or without vaccines or passports or certificates and stuff like that. And this will be very, very important and very influential in the positive way. Now, individually speaking, what these cards mean is actually quite similar. The first cards, the High Priest with the Nine of Swords and the Eight of Swords, well, these are like reflections of the Mars and Saturn square and the Mercury-Saturn square. Frustration, depression, not being able to live our lives the way we want it, not being able to even be who we want to be. Everything and everyone and even us triggering ourselves emotionally. The heavy psychological energy of this period, we're reminded of our wounds, our traumas, our triggers, our weaknesses, everything that is not good in our lives, everything that is not perfect in our lives, and naturally certain conflicts, perhaps with people who we truly love and trust, are also in this picture. So it's gonna be a little bit tough emotionally and psychologically for everyone, but everyone will have their own very unique reasons, their own very unique motives to feel frustrated, a little bit wishy-washy, heavy, irritated, the scorpionic expression of this energy. But this is where there's another side of the story, because all the inner work that we have been doing individually all throughout this year and the past couple of years, because even before we had the massive world change and crisis and all of that, many of us were just pushed forcefully by the hand of faith into healing and doing significant healing work and shadow work and stuff like that. And it is now when that is paying off. If at that time many of us did not know why the universe is so insistent, now we can actually see it, believe it, and trust it. So we are also way stronger than fears and depression and anxiety and all of that. The faith within us is much, much stronger and much more divinely fueled than we can actually imagine. So we're actually safe. We're not that down the rabbit hole, if this makes sense. We might think that, we might feel that, we might interpret that, but there's also a lot of, how should I even say, a lot of spiritual fortitude within us that will definitely show itself and be and stand at our side to fight the fears and all the negative emotions. Also, for very few people out there, this can mean something even more profound, specifically where you might have really tried to, let's say, manifest something or do something that is very, very important for you, and the universe kind of helped you and guided you these past 9 months. And this week something might happen, you might get some news or communication which will break your spirit, if that makes sense, because it will be bad news, or you will think that it's over. You will think that you failed. So this might be a mini moment of crisis, but soon after, something truly wonderful will happen, where the universe will show you another way to get what you want or where you want to be, or whatever that thing is what you've been working on, regardless of its nature in the past 9 months. And that will be a moment of maximum shock for you, because when you process what actually happened, you will realize that a big struggle in your life is over, and a miracle basically took place in your life, and your connection to the divine is never gonna be the same again, in the best possible sense. Now, moving on, we have the moon reversed with the Ten of Wands and the High Priest. Individually speaking, this is also pretty positive, because it means, the moon reversed, emotions are very, very strong. They're very chaotic at times. You might really struggle to even understand yourself, why you're feeling what you're feeling. You might even go back and really think about certain important choices that you have taken in just the recent past. Maybe there's a bit of guilt here. Did you do the right thing or the wrong thing? Did you hurt other people? Were you perhaps selfish in some situations? Or did you do the right thing? So there is an element of confusion and emotional going back and forth over a certain subject, but divine clarity, divine guidance, an inner inspiration will definitely help you out. And even though this week is gonna feel so very heavy and tiresome, you might feel, disenergized, if that makes sense, a strong sense of fatigue. Still, your faith, your psychological fortitude, your emotional energy will keep you going. So whatever obstacles might be heading your way this week, you can definitely overcome them. Now, I'm going to leave the next pile of cards out, because they don't say that much individually speaking. But the following one, the Six of Swords, the Three of Coins, and the Devil reversed, are also really good news individually speaking, because they say a moment or an opportunity of advancement in your career, job, livelihood, material situation, regardless of what you're doing. This means that there is a chance to take a big and important step towards your greater financial and any kind of independence. This can either mean that resources are coming in, or maybe the help of a family member or someone who really, really loves you, a project or a new business idea, a new business goal, something coming together and giving you resources, giving you a security, giving you perhaps a little bit more than you need, because you need to save up for the next couple of months, just in case. And for those people who work with the public, like anything that involves sharing something with the public, maybe an artist, writer, speaker, whatever, for you guys, there might be an opportunity coming your way where either you collaborate with someone definitely much more influential than yourself, so it will be really, really rewarding for you and for what you want to do, Or it could be a past work that you have done all of a sudden paying off now in the sense of notoriety. Someone who you might have helped not so long ago might have sung your praises in all the right places, and without even your knowledge, your reputation increased, and you one way or another become aware of this, and naturally that's really good news. Now, last but not least, for divine guidance, we have emotion, intellect, and union. These are oracle cards. So the emotion intellect actually confirms what I have been speaking about. These two are the primary components of our consciousness in a human form, if that makes sense. When the emotion works together with the intellect in any way, shape, or form, sometimes it's conflictual, of course. Well, it kind of shapes how we perceive and process reality, what reality in its integrity actually means to us. It's almost like reading when you interpret those symbols and those are very coherent to you, and you understand perhaps much more than is actually just written there. And since this is basically the primary component and the modus operandi of our consciousness, when things are really tough, either externally or globally, or maybe individually or internally, that is our shield, that is our weapon, that is everything that we need in order to transform, change things around, and sometimes very quickly. Usually when we cannot turn and change things around, regardless of how much we tap into our emotional and intellectual power, that means that the blockage or whatever we're dealing with is profoundly karmic and it's the divine pattern. But many other obstacles and situations in our lives are not really subjected to karma, and with all those we do have a great power over. So we mustn't feel discouraged when we cannot change just one single situation in our lives, because we can change anything else that is not subjective to karma. So basically, if something makes us feel blocked, heavy, triggered, angry, frustrated, whatever negative emotion it wants to basically evoke from us, by disciplining ourselves and by taking control of our mental sphere and emotional sphere, we can change that. Either block it out, transform it, or just basically leap out of the situation totally and get into a totally different state of mind, different place mentally, etc. So this reminds us of the great power we possess. We can always change our reality. We can change everything that is happening to us. And this week is going to be one of those weeks when, if we attempt to do this, if we attempt to truly tap into our powers, we will be amazed and surprised of just how much we can change / control, influence, modify with our state of being, with our mental sphere, if that makes sense. And finally, this union, well, for most people, it is just an encouragement to try our hardest to make our mind, our mental sphere, our intellectual sphere, and our emotions and intuition, and basically the soul within us, really good bedfellows, so that they cooperate. Because when they're in union, that's when proper magic happens. That is when everything is quick, everything is, very proficient. That is when big manifestations or even divine intervention takes place in our lives. And the need, the pressure, the tension, the turmoil is also a good thing, because that is the catalyst. That is which basically helps us, propulses us. So whenever we are buried under mountains of pressure, and I repeat, that pressure is not necessarily karmic, that is exactly a situation, a moment when we can truly shine, when we can basically embody our heroism, if that is an acceptable term. But for others, some very, very lucky people, the divine is telling them that yes, the emotion, intellect, and trying your hardest and doing the work is of course part of this week, but much to your surprise, maybe this is one of those weeks where your life changes in an unexpected way. Maybe you won't be as alone or single as you thought you were going to be. Maybe a very powerful and important soul ally either manifests you in their lives or vice versa, but this might be the beginning of either the most beautiful friendship or the most exciting love story. Especially if we correlate this to the emotion intellect oracle card. Well, one of you might be in the embodiment of the emotional sphere, so maybe you might have strong water energy, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, and the other one might have very strong air energy, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And as I said, when these two kiss, they're really good friends with each other, magic definitely happens. So basically, this is what the cards have to say for us for this week. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be the messenger of better news. There is definitely going to be a lot of chaos out there, and this is gonna be wild. It's gonna be one of those moments when we will definitely ask ourselves the question if we're living in the Twilight Zone or what exactly is going on out there. But at least we'll have really good stories to tell future generations, children, grandchildren, who knows. And also imagine how many really good books are gonna be written by a lot of people who are experiencing this. So it's not all that bad if we look at the big picture. So thank you so much again for listening. I wish everyone a magical and powerful week. Until next time, bye for now.